feel like Johnny Carson. In this section, in this program, we're going to talk about self-acceptance. And not only any kind of self-acceptance, but joyful self-acceptance. I'm really glad I am who I am. And this makes all the difference, doesn't it? All psychologists, all theologians, everybody admits that of all the attitudes we have up in our minds, the most important one is the attitude you have toward yourself. How do you think of yourself? And I'm convinced, as I said at the end of the last program, I'm convinced that if you like yourself, nothing can make you unhappy. Someone says, you're not my type. And you say, well, sorry, you don't know what you're missing. But if someone says, I love you, and you do love yourself, you say, thank you very much. I know I keep a list of all the things I like about myself in the center drawer of my desk. In case I should die suddenly, they can get ideas for my obituary and funeral sermon. And when someone gives me a compliment, I say, would you expand on that, please? Because I know that this is the central lens. This is central. This is the lens over our eyes. It colors everything else. The way we enjoy life, the way we see other people, all is determined by what we think about ourselves. I know a school teacher. I won't mention her by name, but she said, these little brats are getting worse every year, And I said, oh, no. And I've always thought about this poor school teacher as hanging in there for a pension. That's all she's thinking about. And she said, look at what the little brats gave me. And she gave me a note. And it was an anonymous note. And it said, if you feel all right, would you please notify your face? And I thought, your real problem, I thought to myself, your real problem is you don't like yourself. You really don't like yourself. If you did like yourself, nothing would make you unhappy. You would be fine. It is central. And you can't compare yourself with other people. Don't do that. Comparisons are deadly, because you're always going to find someone who's smarter, someone who's taller, someone who's stronger, someone who's shorter, someone who's more gifted than you are. But you are who God wanted you to be. If I could redesign myself, I'd be 6'2" or 3 maybe. I have a basso profundo voice, like Pavarotti, He's a tenor, isn't he? But anyway, I could redesign myself, but this is who God wanted. When God made me, He made me because He chose me from all eternity to look like this, to sound like this. I am who God who made me. I am what God made me to be. And I can't compare myself with other people. One Nigerian boy in my class told me, that's why your fingers are of unequal length, so they can wrap around something. If they were all of the same length, you couldn't wrap around a baseball bat or a cooking pan. You couldn't. And it's interesting that we compare ourselves with other people, but we're the only people who do that. Flowers don't say, I'm a big flower, I'm a little flower, I'm who God made me to be. I am going to brighten a place where I blossom, I am who God, and I'm fully equipped to do whatever God wanted me to do. Now, this is really important, that you learn to like yourself, that you learn joyfully to accept yourself. And the first reason is that you will act out whatever you think you are. If you think you're a loser, you'll act like a loser. If you think you're a winner, you'll act like a winner. You really will. Confident, you'll be confident. But it all depends on what you think of yourself. There's a story in American Indian folklore of a brave who found an eagle's egg. And he can't find the nest, so he's looking around, and he puts it under a prairie chicken. And the prairie chicken hatches it, and the eagle comes out and looks around and says, what am I supposed to do? And he sees the other prairie chickens go, caw, 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 scratch, scratch, scratch. And they're scavengers. They rise a few feet above the earth, and they come back. And so he goes, caw, 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 scratch, scratch, scratch. He doesn't know he's an eagle. He thinks he's a prairie chicken. And near the end of his life, he sees an eagle flying overhead. And he says to one of the older prairie chickens, this, of course, is a myth from American Indian folklore. He says to one of the other prairie chickens, hey, what is that? And one of the older prairie chickens, oh, that, my friend, is an eagle. That's the strongest, most powerful bird in the sky. Hey, but don't you think you would ever be an eagle? You're a prairie chicken like the rest of us. And the story ends, and so he died, thinking he was a prairie chicken. And I want to say to almost everybody I meet, come on, there's an eagle inside. Let it fly up into the sun. But the first thing you got to do is learn really to accept who you are. I am who I am, and that's who I am. And this is who God made me to be. This is what God wanted me to look like. This is what God wanted me to do in life. So, there's a second problem connected with the self-image. That you are treated the way you project yourself. If you project yourself as a winner, you'll be treated as a winner. If you come home and say, hey, I'm not a doormat anymore, no one's going to roll over me. They won't roll over you. And the third reason for liking yourself is, and this is a tough one, it's really tough to get people to understand, that you love in proportion as you love yourself. If someone doesn't love him or herself, and they think, oh, but I love God, I love other people, the answer is they think they do. And you let them think they do, but they really don't. Because there's an inverse proportion between the amount of pain in us and the amount of love. An inverse proportion. It's very important going into a relationship to know this. That the more pain a person is in, the less able they are to get out and ask other people, what do you need? I want to be for you what you need me to be. I want to say what you need said. You can't do that when you're in a lot of pain. And we all go into pain at some time. Physical pain, psychological pain. We worry about things. We fail at things. And we experience the pain that limits our love. Now, Carl Jung calls it the civil war that's going on inside of us. Now, most of the pain that is in you and in me comes from lack of self-love, lack of joyful self-acceptance. And the more that throbs inside of us, the less able we are to love. The less able we are to go out to other people. And the less able we are to go to God. Oh, we say that. We say we love other people. We say we love God. But do we really? Oh, if all you're thinking about is yourself, you're not. I remember when I first started teaching. As a Jesuit scholastic, we teach for 3 years before ordination. And they warned us, don't smile till Christmas. Because those little rascals will take your pants off and roll them up on the flagpole. So I went into the classroom and I was going to lay down the law. You know, you guys are going to take my pants off. And the whole first year, all I ever thought about was myself. Because I was in pain. I was in the pain of worrying about, can I teach? Can I control a class? And I used to say, hey, you back row, shut up back there. Because I didn't want the principal walking by to say, oh, God, he can't control a class. There's noise coming out of his classroom. So I told people to shut up, and I said awful things, but simply because I was so scared. And I never thought about them. I taught well because I wanted them to do well and make me a big success. But the second year, after I assumed, if you have contrary opinions, please do not venture them right now, but after I assumed that I can control a class, that I am a good teacher, then for the first time I began to see those students out there, the hurt looks on their faces. And then I began to think about them. Now I think what I discovered in teaching is true of life too. The more you like yourself, the more you are able to go out to other people. And the less you like yourself, the more you stay inside. Now there is a difficulty obviously with this, liking yourself, is that they tell me, now I don't know how, don't ask me please, how do you know this number, right? I don't know, okay? But they say that between birth and age 5, the average child gets 431 negative messages every day. Now that's what I don't know how they count them, but I know what a negative message is. Get down from there, you're too small. Oh, that's not the way you tie shoes. Oh, you got dirt on your clothes. Now be quiet, I've had a hard day. All children hear this, and they grow up on this as their first impression of life. So it's not surprising, is it, that we come into life with inferiority complexes, because when we first start asking questions, people tell us, be quiet, I've had a hard day. And I remember saying these things one night, these messages in the church, and a little girl was asleep on her father's shoulder. I tend to do that when I'm giving sermons. But when I talked about these negative messages, the little girl looked up at me, and I looked at her daddy and said, Daddy, why is he talking about me? And he came up and told me that at the end. He brought the little girl up to testify, but she was asleep again. That the average child gets so many negative messages. I had a friend who thought his name was Freddie No-No until he was 8. So it is a problem, isn't it, in learning to like yourself. And the fourth and last reason for liking yourself is you can't be yourself until you like yourself. If you don't like yourself, you'll be putting on an act. Now, my act is to look like I got it all together, right? I don't remember where I put it, but I know I've got it all together, right? You put on an act to the extent that you don't like yourself. I remember one time making a communications workshop. And they put us in a small group of 6. There were about 60 people making a week-long workshop. And I knew it was going to be tough because you had to be over 20, under 50 to make it, and no history of psychological problems. And I sneaked in. Anyway, in our group of 6, there was a facilitator called the Big Nun. We called her the Big Nun, the Vulture Queen, the Dragon Lady. She was miserable in her role as facilitator of emotions. I don't think she was really like this. But anyway, she would circle our little group. And one night they had a music move your body exercise for everybody. And no one else got up, so I thought I'll get up. So I was doing pirouettes. And the next day in our small group, we had a fragile lady. I said, and what's the matter? Who hurt you? She said, I'm not participating in this workshop, and you know it, and I know it. And I was melted by these crocodile tears. And I said, oh, honey, you're doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can expect of you. And Big Nun says, you bunch of suckers. And we were all intimidated by her, and we looked up, and what do you mean? And she said, Goo Eyes here, she had nicknames for all of us, is a manipulator. She's manipulating this group. She's been doing it for 4 days. And you've all been buying her act. Now, there are 2 ways to manipulate. One is to, I'll raise my voice. Want me to raise my voice, huh? And no dog bark, right? The other way that's more effective is to be weak. I'll cry. You don't want that, do you? No, I don't want that. So she said she's been doing that for 4 days, and you've all been buying it. And I'm sitting across from Goo Eyes, and I see these big tears rolling down her cheeks, and I'm trying to get down to get eye contact and tell her, I'm with you, honey. I'm not with the Big Nun. And when I get down there, you know what she said to me? She said, she's right. She agreed with Big Nun. And she said, I've been doing this all my life. I don't say I can't do it. I don't say I won't do it, because people ask you, why won't you do it? I just say, oh, I can't. I can't. That's not me. I'm not participating. If I had a secret in my heart, I would rip it out and show it to you. But I don't even have that. And Big Nun is. So I look up at Big Nun and I say, don't you think you're being kind of hard on her? And she used my nickname. Now, don't you ever repeat this. But she said, shut up, loudmouth, you're next. And then she asked me, loudmouth, what was it like when you were the first one up on the floor at the music move your body exercise? And I said, well, I couldn't see anyone else get up, so I thought I'd better get up. And I did, and everybody else got up, and I felt good about that. And she said, oh, wow. And she said, did you ever think maybe if you hadn't been the first one up, someone who's more shy and inhibited than you are could have won a very valuable victory over him or herself? She said, you're so dumb, I'll bet you give advice, don't you? And where did that come from? And so I said, yeah, I do if people ask me for it. She said, that's really dumb. And I said, what's so dumb about it? And she said, you're so dumb, you don't even know what's dumb about it. And I said, tell me, help me, educate me, what's dumb about it? And she said, when someone comes to you and says, what should I do, huh? What should I do? And you tell them. You think you're helping them? You're not. You're keeping them weak. You're not asking them to grow their own muscles. You're not asking them to use their own decisiveness. You are letting them hitchhike on you. And you put your little head in the pillow at night and you say, I helped all those poor people who couldn't make up their minds. You didn't help them at all. You kept them weak. And I thought, oh, my goodness. I said, touche, Dragon Lady. You really got me. And you know what I believe? That I was an enabler. She said, you know, you give a person a fish they can eat for a day, but you teach them the fish they can eat for life. She said, you're like a lifeguard. When people start swimming into shore, you push them out in the deep water so you can throw them a life raft. You can be their personal savior. And whoa, that's really something, huh? So think about that, please. If you like yourself, you can be yourself. You can be real. And if you don't like yourself, you won't be real. You'll put on an act. And maybe it won't be my act of being an enabler, but it'll be some kind of an act. And so what I would like to suggest to you is that you don't worry about humility in learning to like yourself. Make a list of the things you like about yourself. Ask people to expand on compliments the way I do. Because St. Bernard says what real humility is attributing everything to God. If there's anything good about me, it's because God has given it to me. And if there's anything bad about me, it's because I'm limiting the gift of God. So he said that the greatest expression of humility in the whole New Testament is Mary's Magnificat, where she said, he who is mighty has done great things in me, and from this day forth all nations will call me blessed. And I think you and I have to learn to say that he who is mighty has done great things in us, and from this day forth all nations, everyone who gets to know us will say, you are really blessed. And we have been blessed. And here is Loretta Brady, speaking of blessings, who is going to take us through an exercise on whether we really like ourselves. This is Loretta Brady.
Hello. The exercise I'd like to offer you is a nice, relaxing, you sit back and let me do the work of this. It's really an opportunity, I hope, for you to get in touch with who you feel that you are, who you see yourself to be. You know, a lot of times people walk up and say, well, how are you? And you say, fine. And then, you know, they walk away and they say, if they only knew. And, you know, so we have various impressions, and some we give out to people and others we don't. But even when we look at ourselves, sometimes we think we're fine. But if we really took the time to sit back and look, we said, well, no, I'm hurting. Or I'm better than fine. I'm really in great spirits about myself and life. But in any case, this opportunity, I think, will give you some time to just sit back, get a little bit in touch with who you are, how you see yourself. Because if we're going to follow John's advice in terms of accepting ourselves as we are, well, we have to know, how are we? So this is maybe a how are you exercise. So if you would start by getting yourself comfortable in your chairs, if there's a nice comfortable spot you haven't sat on yet. And closing your eyes. And just follow along with my guide. If you, in your journey inward, find a path, but hear my voice going in a different direction, go where you need to go and just tune me out. But I'm going to be a guide and be there if you need that guide. So with your eyes closed now, begin to just pay attention to your breathing. Feel your breath coming in and going out of your body. And hear the sound of your breath, both inside and outside. Hear the sound of that wonderful gift of life. You know, each time we breathe, we say yes to life. We say, yes, I want to live. Each breath says that. Just focus on that, your breath and that idea and that concept. And now I'd like to ask you to take one long, slow, deep breath all the way in, all the way. And hold that for a second or two. Fill your whole person with that, and then exhale very, very slowly. And as you continue to breathe naturally, direct your focus inside to the internal parts of your body, as if you were in there in a PBS special, taking a journey through your body. And picture all the various parts and pieces inside your body. You're traveling through there, experiencing them all, picturing them all, kind of checking up on how are things there. And if you find a certain area that seems to be all knotted up and tense, just focus on that, as if it was almost another person, and just say, oh, relax. Just relax and unwind, unstretch. And then continue on. Continue through your body, noticing, relaxing, just being at ease with your whole physical person. And now I'd like to ask you to direct your attention to the imagery that I will suggest. First of all, picture yourself sitting in a small but comfortable room, and you're sitting opposite an empty chair about 6 feet away from you. So focus in on that chair. Take a real good look at that chair. What kind of chair is it? Is it a straight back chair or a big lazy boy or just a nice armchair in between the two? Or is it upholstered? What kind of chair is it in your fantasy? Take a real close look at it. So close, in fact, that you could almost remake that chair, make a model of that chair. Look at all the fine points of it. And while you're focusing in very, very closely, now that you see that chair very clearly, begin to see someone who you know very well, good friend, close relative, someone in your family. Begin to visualize that person seated in that chair, as if they just come to life seated in that chair. Now you know this person very well, but I want you to look at them almost as if you'd never seen them before, very clearly, and notice everything about them, their posture, their facial expression. And notice how they look at you. How do they view you? While you're with this person for another moment, think of what you would like to specially say to this person. And express that now. Tell that person whatever special thing you would like to say. And then in your imagination, watch that person get up from the chair and leave the room. And then return your focus to the chair. And as you do, you'll see a second person who you know, someone in your life, begin to be visually seated in that chair. This is a different person. You have a whole different feeling about being with this person, don't you? It's called a felt sense. All your relationships, all your associations with this person is different than with the first person. You almost physically feel different in this person's presence. This is a different felt sense. How do you see this person viewing you? And what would you most like to say to this person? Please say that now. Whatever it is you'd most like to say to this person. And then again, your imagination allows you to see this person get up from the chair and slowly leave the room. When you return your focus to the chair, for the third time, but this time it will be very special and very different, the person who begins to emerge as seated in that chair is you, the imagined you. This is another felt sense. How does it feel to be with you? Is it comfortable? Uncomfortable? Why is it whatever it is? What kind of felt sense do you have about yourself? And what is it you would most like to say to yourself? Please say that now. Whatever you would most like to say to you. And in your imagination, begin to see yourself get up from the chair, your imagined self, and leave the room. Whenever you're comfortable, please open your eyes. While you're coming back to the here and now, let me suggest that if you're going to be doing this program as a group of people sharing it together, this would be a good opportunity to take time with each other and share what kind of experience you had in that guided imagery with each one of the three persons you imagined, and how it felt and what you said, but especially how you felt with yourself and what you said to yourself. What is it about you? Do you have a sense of accepting yourself? To what extent don't you accept yourself? Those would be good things to share with others. And if you happen to be using this program by yourself, it would also be good if you would take the time just to write those things down now and to see and to remember a sense of what kind of self-acceptance you have. To what degree do you accept yourself? To what degree do you not accept yourself? And in the next program, which will follow, John will be talking about how we can begin to take full responsibility for ourselves. So first we work on accepting ourselves, and then we'll have the challenge of taking full responsibility for ourselves. Thank you.